Amy Khan here for Seconds Out. Pleasure to be in the company of Mick Conlan, albeit over Zoom. We were just discussing gaming, but you're not doing any gaming in a few weeks. It'll be in the ring, putting the gloves back on against Kevin Walsh. Mick, how you feeling for that fight?
I'm good, mate. I'm good. Training camp's going well. Almost at the end now, thank God. And we're almost at another fight, which is good.
When it comes to the opponent, was it a point of picking out the opponent or just looking for the best fight you could get?
Motors put him to me. Nissa and Kala put him to me. I said, no problem. It's the first person to say it. I said, yeah, if that works, that'll do. Rank with WBC, helps push my ranking up and all that there, so it's good.
Are you on the trajectory you feel towards getting that world title shot that you want again?
Yeah, there's a lot of conversations in the background, which is making me believe we're moving in the right direction, so I'm happy enough.
What are those conversations?
There's potential of the next one or the fight after that to be a world title fight.
hmm When it comes to the fight you had before against Jack Bason, there were some doubts about yourself. Do you feel you put those doubts to bed?
Yeah, I think so. I think so, and I think you've seen on my reaction. It wasn't anybody else who was trying to prove anything to it. It was myself. And I said I'm back because I do feel I'm back, and I'm ready to push towards that on this last run towards a world title.
You looked stronger. You looked more. I don't know how to put it, but maybe physical
Yeah.
in the body. You look stronger, and that showed in your punches as well. Is it difficult to get to that point of fitness? What is that like to get to there?
It's just training camps, isn't it? And this joining Grant Smith at Steel City and having Johnny Reynolds and then Carl Evans has been nutritious. Johnny is the S&C. It's been the perfect team to have together, and everything is moving in the right direction. It's tough, listen, 100% of stuff. Training in general is not easy, so you have to put the work in. And I've always been one who works his ass off. So I've continued to do that with these guys and feeling really good.
When it came to being back in Dublin, was there a pressure involved in that?
Well, that was my first time fighting in Dublin as a professional, and it was somewhere where I've always wanted to fight as a pro. And then when I went and done it, I was like, wow, this is why I wanted to fight here. The atmosphere was unbelievable. Pressure, no, to be honest, I think I passed all pressure kind of situations. So I've been in the biggest nights and the biggest arenas are in the world. So for me, it's just about enjoying it now.
What about Mr. Walsh? What have you seen of him?
Yeah, listen, he's a dangerous guy. He's looks like he punches hard enough. A bit reckless at times, throws an awful lot of punches. So it's going to be an exciting fight, man. I think it's a dangerous one because he's relatively unknown, and he does have a bit of pop. Plus, he's undefeated. He's coming in with that kind of undefeated confidence, and I think he's going to come and do a job. But I think after round one, I think it's very different.
You pointing out that you feel he's reckless in his offense. Does that put out there the opportunity that you could stop him?
Listen, there's a possibility for everything. I believe I can stop him. Will I hunt for a stoppage? No, I'll put on a boxing masterclass, and if it comes, fantastic.
Mick, when it comes to the featherweight scene, there's been some movement recently. What do you make of the current landscape of the division?
Yeah, all very good champions. All very, very good champions. Carrington is WBC champion. That's the one I want to go for. But he's a very, very good fighter, very tough fighter, and a lovely man as well. I know him personally, and I respect him. I like him. But someone who I would like to face. The Figueroa Nick Ball fight. What a fight! Unbelievable fight. And like Figueroa come off at the end, and it was a really, really good fight to watch. Rafael Espinoza, a very tall fighter, very dangerous fighter, throws an awful lot of punches, a tough fighter. And Azrulio, another great champion.
Let me throw Nick Ball at you. What do you think about the possibility of fighting Nick Ball?
Listen, there's a possibility of anything. These paths can all cross. Who knows what's going to happen.
hmm you saw recently Lee Wood and Josh Warrington get at it again. It wasn't the fight of the first one
No.
round, but Lee Wood picks up the victory again. What did you think?
Yeah, Lee boxed well. good, smart boxing, not getting drawn into any wars. But if I'm honest, both guys just looked old, didn't they? They looked relatively old, and yeah, that's all I could say about that one. It wasn't the most exciting fight to watch, but the right man won.
Lee Wood and Josh Warrington, in your words, looked old. How come you haven't looked old in the ring yet? What's the difference between you and them?
I probably have looked old at times. Who
Well,
knows? But
I don't know if both of them could put out the performance that you put out last time.
yeah, probably not. But I think the difference is, I've lost three times, but I haven't been in wars, an awful lot of wars. I've been in one or two, yes, but I haven't took an awful lot of punishment or put my body through an awful lot of hell in fights. I put my body through an awful lot of hell through training, yes, but I think there's probably more males on their clocks than there is on mine.
You think Lee Wood is a fight you could have again?
Potentially, everything is a potential. You know what I mean? If it makes money, it makes sense. He's up a featherweight them or super featherweight them, even the won a world title featherweight, and if we can do that and Lee's still around after, yeah, no problem. Or if someone came in and put a big bag of money on the table and says we'll have this fight a super featherweight, yeah, no problem. If it's right, if it makes sense. But for me, the win a world title is my goal. It ain't about avenging the loss against Lee Wood. Yes, I would love that, but at the same time, I got to stick to my goals of being a world champion, and that's where I want to go first.
Speaking of money, I remember off the back of your last fight, we talked about at the end whether you would consider being part of the Misfits side and having like Misfits fighters under your shows, and you said if it paid you more, then you'd consider everything. Was that ever a conversation with the Sowlands?
Nah, no, I don't think they wanna. I think they wanna make the MF Pro something different than actual Misfits. They want to actually make it a professional body and make it an organization, like a Matchroom, like a Top Rank, of them kind of things. And I respect that. But as I says, it was never something we talked about. But if it made sense, okay, no problem. If it sold more tickets, you get paid more money. Okay, no problem.
Let me get some takes from you from the boxing world. First of all, I saw you share Joe Joyce's return post to the sport. What do you think about Joe returning back to the heavyweight division?
Yeah, well, I'm managing Joe now, and we had agreed the yoga fight in January, and then it was announced. I was told 2 days before the announcement. We apologize, but Yuka's going to fight a Coley instead. So Joe will be back very soon. In the middle of trying to get something sorted for him. If I'm honest, I like a Joe Joyce Dave Allen fight. That I think that's a good fight for both of them at this stage. Obviously Dave Allen's talking about Zhang, but the guy beat who Zhang has beat is Joe Joyce, and he's on home soil. It's probably an easier fight to make. I wouldn't mind seeing that one. Big Joe versus first Dave, two good guys facing each other. Wouldn't be a bad one to watch.
Every time I speak to Joe, I don't fail to mention that he's probably one of the most exciting fighters in the UK, considering what he brings offensively and also vulnerabilities as well. But he's got the big punch too, and he can take the punch as well. Does he have to be carefully managed on his way back to where he wants to get to?
Of course, the right fight, the right time. You can't be reckless and jumping into like a Jallah fight or a Moses Atuma fight in the first fight back. We got to build him in the correct way. But Joe's a 12 round fighter. He doesn't want to do no short rounds or low rounds. So he wants good opponents in front of him. And at the minute they have Joe over training with Sugar Hill, and by all accounts it's going fantastically. So I'm very excited to see Joe Joyce 2.0, and I think that he's going to make some noise and come back the best Joe Joyce you'll see.
Were those fights that were offered to him, Jalalov and Natalma?
No, they weren't offered. No, they weren't offered.
Hmm. What about the potential of Joe versus the likes of, we've seen obviously Justice Hooney in with Fraser Clark, but that sort of level of opponent, are they looking?
We agreed to Hooney,
Okay.
but I don't think Ring wanted that fight on the card. So no, I think we were in talks recent enough with Reactport. We were talks with Fraser, but not personally through their management promotion. Um, and we agreed to both of them too, but it didn't happen.
There's been a big talking point over the last couple of weeks about Conor Benn and his decision to move over to Zuffa Boxing from Eddie Hearn. A lot of conversation surrounding loyalty in boxing and the phrase that's been littered throughout boxing throughout the years. If you want loyalty, buy a dog. But I wonder where you stand on that whole situation of Conor deciding to take the money and essentially look after his family.
Yeah, listen, it's it's a give and take one, isn't it? You look at it and you go, I respect the guys. Listen, he's earning fucking 15 million. The fit Regis Prograis, who's a late welterweight, probably more at the tail end of his career than Connor's probably midway at the start, towards maybe more at the start of his career than Regis is towards the end. Um, but at the same time, you got to look at it in context in terms of what Matchroom had done for Conor Benn and how Eddie Hearn backed him. Even though he failed 2 drug tests, and he backed him and played his innocence, and everybody kind of had Eddie in the mud for a while when he was doing that. For to not give him a call or to not notify him and to do it through the lawyer, I thought it was a real dirty kind of move. You know what I mean? If you're going to do it yourself and do it in person, but there's reasons, and there is reason to earn the money. Fantastic, fair play to you. I don't begrudge you on that, but how you went about it is the bad way. If you went about it a different way, it could have worked out well, and it could have been a nice way to do things. But in my opinion, it wasn't done in the right way.
It seems like right now another topic of conversation is the significance of the belts and what they mean right now to you as a fighter. Obviously, you're looking for that WBC ranking and looking to get to that title shot. But do the belts mean what they mean to you? Do you feel like they're being diminished in some form right now?
To be honest, if you're a world champion, you're world champion. Doesn't really matter. Whatever belt it is. It's just nice to have one. Nice to have one of them at least. So yeah, listen, the WBC world title for me has always been a title from you see from when you're a kid when you're watching the boxing around the world, and then the opportunity to fight for it and potentially win it would be fantastic. So that would be the belt. I've always kind of favored. I fought for an IBF and the WBA, but the nicest belt of the autumn I've always said was the WBC. So to win that one would be fantastic.
So if you're a Zuffa boxing champion, are you world champion?
Yeah, in that world you are, but
Hmm.
it's a very small world, isn't it? It's you're a champion of that league. You maybe can't say world because it's not really the whole world which is involved in it. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But in the same context, you look at a different one, say like UFC champions or champions of the world, but there's other promotions out there who like PFL and Bellator and stuff like that, and they have their own world champions too. So it's a funny old game, isn't it? Either way, it's who is the actual best in the world, because people are different organizations, different bodies. You don't really know.
So as an active fighter and someone who's working with fighters to help them, how do you look at that landscape of you could go to Zuffa, you could go to what's currently in place now with the structure? How do you look at what's the opportunities that are out there now?
Whatever's going to be best for the fighter is
Mm.
how you look at things. Whoever is going to look after the fighter the most, guide the fighter in the right direction, give him the right fights at the right time, and pay him accordingly. You know what I mean? You don't have to overpay anybody, but pay them accordingly to what it is. And something in UFC, I think that they don't get paid what they should get paid. I think they're paid buttons compared to what the promotion actually earns. So, I don't like that. I don't like how Dana was coming in and saying about the Ali Act being eradicated and stuff. So, I think that boxing, it's never been okay in general. But with the Ali Act, at least there's a little bit of security there. But trying to change the type of things has always kind of bothered me.
So right now, there are some UFC fighters who are coming out and saying they're not too happy about the whole Conor Benn situation, what he's getting paid. But the whole thing with boxing is if you can draw that money, then you get paid it. I know that UFC stars are under a different sort of deal, but can they really complain at the moment?
Yeah, I agree. I agree because, as I said, like the UFC is bringing in whatever amount of millions or billions. Who knows? If you've done your research on it, you would know the actual numbers, but they don't get paid more than fucking 15 or 20% of the whole promotion's earnings, which I think is bad. Boxing's completely different. It's the opposite, isn't it? It's 70-30, I think. 70 paid to the fighters, 30 paid to the promotion kind of thing. So yeah, listen, they have all the right in the world to be shouting about it. And let's be honest, is Conor Benn a big enough draw to draw 15 million of money into, a fight? They're putting them on a Fury undercard. It's not really showing much belief in that 15 million was the worthy price. I think it was more of a we're going to take you in Eddie Hearn kind of thing, and more a thing with the promoters facing each other rather than the fighter being of value.
Mm-hmm. Mick, I appreciate your time. Looking forward to seeing you back in the ring. Appreciate your insights in the sport as well. Thank you for speaking to Seconds Out, sir.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.